Why wait to earn the degree you deserve? You have the experience, you have the knowledge. Now's the time to get the credit for the work you've done and earn the recognition you deserve by starting your comeback at Purdue Global. It's time to earn a degree you'll be proud of, a degree that employers will respect. It's never too late. Never too late to come back stronger and move forward in your career. Start your comeback today at purdueglobal.edu. Purdue's online university for working adults.
This episode is brought to you by Navy Federal Credit Union. It's a special thing to be a member of Navy Federal because they are a member-owned, not-for-profit credit union that invests in its members with amazing rates and low fees. That's why members could earn and save more every year. Plus, they serve all branches of the armed forces, veterans, and their families. So if you're interested in becoming a member, learn more at NavyFederal.org. At Navy Federal Credit Union, our members are the mission. Insured by NCUA.
Episode 305, Intentional Strategies to Increase Your Income with Rich Jones.
Welcome to the Frugal Friends podcast, where you'll learn to save money, embrace simplicity, and live a richer life. Here are your hosts, Jen and Jill.
Welcome to the Frugal Friends podcast. My name is Jen.
My name is Jill.
And in the lead up to my eventual maternity leave, we have another summit interview for you. And this was personally my favorite.
Yes, I have to agree.
It was the longest. If you were with us at our Future of Frugal Summit in 2021, then you may have heard this one. If not, then you have never heard this interview before. And that's a shame because Rich Jones, he is a good friend of ours. He works for Google and he is a master at just strategizing on how to either work up the ladder where you are, increase your income, go elsewhere. Is a very good interview.
I still reference this interview and some of my takeaways. I think we've talked about it, honestly, in other podcasts, but even in my own personal conversations with people, he gives such great tips and insights that I have carried with me over the last 2 years. So I'm really excited to allow this interview to live on more fully. It's just been hidden in our computers since the summit. And now to be able to have it be a part of our playlist is so excellent. And I know you all will love it.
Yes. But first, this episode is brought to you by having the receipts. Not the tiny book in your purse that shows where all your money is going, but having proof or evidence of your work. After listening to this episode, receipts will have a whole new meaning to you. But if you're currently stuck with a bunch of shopping receipts, then check out our free 3-day spending makeover. It is a total makeover for your money and it will help you get better with your finances. So your receipts are proof of your accomplishments and not your expenses. Start your spending makeover right now at frugalfriendspodcast.com/makeover.
Ooh, what a great tie-in. So now, before we get into it though,
Jill just wants to dive right in.
I do. I'm so excited for you all. But if you want other episodes to queue up, you know we've got more because we're at episode 305, but check out episode 278, which is part of our Frugal Side Hustle series where we talk with someone from Salesforce, kind of gives an overview of that opportunity. If you are looking to increase your income, that's a great one to check out. Also, episode 263, how to negotiate a higher salary in any field with Mandy Woodruff Santos. Really another excellent one.
I would say these two pair best together.
Yes.
263 with Mandy and then 305 with Rich. these are really good ones to play back to
Mandy
back.
challenged me in some of my solidified belief systems about who salary increases are available to and who they're not. And she just says everybody, they're available to everybody. So even if you're a teacher, even if you're a social worker, check that one out. It's challenging in a really good way.
Yes.
Episode 263. But for right now, we got Rich Jones.
Yes, he is, again, a good friend, host of the Mental Wealth Show. And we're excited to show him off to you.
Rich, thank you so much for joining us on the Future of Frugal Summit. We're excited to have you.
I appreciate you having me.
So excited to talk about this. And I think it's applicable to pretty much everyone that is an adult or heading towards adulthood. So
hopefully.
Yeah, this is great.
I mean, at some point, it's got to be applicable unless you never have to work. And then in general, people always have to negotiate. There's always something to negotiate for. And there's always a reason to kind of see the value in and the worth of what you do. That's something that you should always have in mind. So yeah, it does apply to everything.
Yeah, agreed. So Rich, for those who don't know about you and Paychecks and Balances, tell us a little bit about your background and your experience hiring and negotiating.
Yeah. So by day, I work at Google in diversity, equity, and inclusion. I've been in this role that I'm in now for about a month and a half. And it kind of speaks to some of the work that I've done over the past years in terms of being able to make career pivots. Prior to this role, the past decade of my career, maybe even a little bit more than that, was spent working in the staffing and recruiting world, where both as a headhunter for a staffing agency and then as an in-house or internal recruiter for large corporate companies and even smaller tech startups. So I've been in staffing, recruiting, HR really since 2010. And I've been building things online since 2008, including a couple of award-winning blogs that people don't know about. That's what some of these awards are in the background. And then I started podcasting in 2013 because I was trying to find content that spoke to me. And a lot of the personal finance content at the time, it felt like it was either boring or I saw the same face of the older white gentleman in a suit. And that was kind of the face of personal finance at the time in 2013. And so I really wanted to create what I couldn't find. And that kind of led to the first podcast. But that podcast talked about everything under the sun. And then in 2016, we did the whole niche thing down and rebranded. And that's when Paychecks and Balances was officially born. And so getting ready to start a new season of the podcast, which is pretty awesome. Have a lot of exciting guests that are lined up. And yeah, really love sharing my experience working in the professional world, but also how good career decisions lead to good financial outcomes. So how do we bridge the gap between the conversations that are having around money and also the conversations that are happening around work?
That's awesome.
You are doing so much. You're like by day,
too much,
and by afternoon, and by evening, and collecting trophies.
It's a lot, and it is something that I had to step back from and create more space for myself, because previously I was a weekly podcaster, and then I went to bi-weekly in September until basically around the time that we're recording this, and I'm getting ready to go back to a weekly schedule. And I just mentioned that because when I went to bi-weekly, it was to create space and understand, like, okay, now I'm doing this alone. Do I have enough time for this? Am I giving myself space to recharge? Am I able to do the level of research and thorough pre-show prep to ensure that I do each guest justice? Ooh, that was a hard couple of words to say together. So it's going to be more work going forward, but I think what's also been helpful is hiring a team. And being in a place with the business side of things to where I can say, I don't need to be up all night. I can afford to hire someone to do some of these tasks, especially when I'm at work during the day, which is really difficult and challenging. And so I've been fortunate enough to get to a place where I can afford to pay a few people to help out. So 3 freelancers, 2 virtual assistants, and I'll probably be hiring more people in the next few months.
Wow.
You are an inspiration to me in hiring. For sure.
Which is fitting, given the conversation that we're going to have, because even even something like writing the job description for a freelance writer, like most people wouldn't enjoy that type of stuff, but since it's right in my wheelhouse, I've written tons of job descriptions. I know how to make them engaging. I know exactly what I want. It's kind of like getting to practice some of my day job responsibilities in the side hustle world and vice versa. But the hiring is, that made my life so much better. Just getting a few more folks on board to help with the writing, because y'all know, I mean, it's a lot of work when you're creating content, plus you're running the business. So, you know, you're writing, you're podcasting, you're videoing, you're TikToking, you're YouTubing, you're storying, you're doing kids, family, all of these other things that are going on. It's really difficult. And I find sometimes the only way to be able to manage it all is to contract some of that out. Even hiring a house cleaner. Some people think of house cleaners as like this like bougie thing. I'm like, no, this saves hours per week. Same thing with meal delivery services. Like, oh, that's like fancy. No, this is getting me time back. So I will spend a little money in interest of getting back time, because frugality for me is spending less on the things I don't care about and more on the things that are important to me. So
I think you just defined it. We 100% agree with that. And we're really thrilled to be having this conversation with you about hiring, negotiating salaries, because I think all of this does converge, especially for those with busy schedules, which I don't think I know anybody who is not busy or wouldn't describe themselves in that way. And so this is a really important key factor to that, is making sure that you are getting the most you can out of the time that you have. And thrilled to hear, Rich, about your role in looking at diversity, equity, and inclusion. I think that absolutely ties into what we're talking about here, and the people who are experiencing barriers to increasing salary or negotiating those pieces, whether internally or externally. And so thrilled to hear your perspective on this today. And for starters, I think we're curious to hear from your own perspective and experience what you see when it comes to resumes, interviewing, negotiating salaries. Is there a difference between men and women? We can even talk about culturally too, however you want to angle that one. But curious what you even see just as far as barriers in these different categories.
A lot. I just say a lot. It's particularly interesting because the world that I'm in now, it's focused on retention and progression. So folks who are at a crossroad, they might be struggling with a challenge internally. They might have an issue with their manager. And a lot of that is coaching and supporting them through the next step of their journey. And the reason that I said a lot, and this isn't just specific to where I work, but in general. So one, there's just a lot of bad managers that are out there in general. I think that there are a lot of people who become managers just as a step along their career path. They actually don't have a desire to manage people. They just see that as a box that they need to check to get into whatever leadership position it is that they ultimately want to be in. And as a result, those people who they actually manage suffer because maybe this person doesn't have high emotional intelligence. Maybe this person doesn't know how to help somebody identify their professional goals. I don't expect a manager at work to be able to help you define your personal values, but I do believe a manager should be able to coach and should be able to get you to think and have some of these conversations where you arrive at details that are critically important to you. I don't think most folks actually do the work of sitting down and defining their values. And so what I see in the workplace is a lot of bad management. And then I say that even from having had multiple managers over the course of my career. And I'd like to think that I've been a good manager, but no, I have been a good manager. Darn it. People have told me enough that I have been a good manager.
There you go. Own it.
And what makes it tricky with men and women is that corporate America, it's a very just like vocal culture. It's very friendly to extroverts, where the louder you are, the whole, what's that saying? Like the squeaky wheel gets the grease or whatever. And what's interesting when it comes to getting raises and promotions at work, that requires you to advocate for yourself at a certain level, because it is not your manager's job to track your accomplishments. It is your own. And I think what happens a lot of times is people expect that their manager is keeping track of everything that they've done throughout the year. And then when it comes time for a performance review conversation and the rating isn't where they thought it would be, they're surprised. And now they're upset with their manager. And now they have all of these questions. But the manager has a million things going on in their lives. A manager has all these meetings and other responsibilities. And I've noticed that when it comes to advocating for self, that it does require, I'd say that it does require a bit more oomph for women. And I do think that there are some like gender and social dynamics that I think are at play there, where sometimes people don't want to come off as being like too opinionated or come off as being difficult, and some of those stereotypes that have traditionally been at least associated with women in the workplace, like, oh, she's what's the phrase they always say about women who have strong opinions? It's like one of those coded words, like, oh, she's
opinionated is definitely one.
They call little girls bossy,
difficult.
That's it. Yeah. So stuff like that, and the way that shows up in the workplace is you get people who don't speak up about their accomplishments. They think that just doing their work and getting it done will speak for itself. Whereas in many cases, it actually requires you to speak up and advocate and say, hey, here's what I'm working on, be more vocal in meetings, things like that. But then it also requires you to actually like write down what you're doing throughout the year, so that when it comes time for these performance review conversations, you've already got the receipts.
Mm.
And I have found that men, for whatever reason, tend to be more frequent at advocating for themselves and keeping track of everything. I'm sure there's some privileged stuff that's within there as well, whereas women aren't as quick to advocate. And also, I found that women and even underrepresented minority groups will look at a job description and they will self-select and not apply for certain roles because they don't have every skill, whereas other groups will see that they don't have everything and apply anyway. Mm-hmm. So sometimes, based on gender and other factors, people actually block their own blessings because they'll look and say, I don't have everything, when they should have just applied. And there has been research to show that women will often filter themselves out more than men who will just go full steam ahead and apply for the same role.
My husband is head of a department at his work, and he's hiring right now, and he's going through something like 300 applications. And he says, to an extreme percentage, men are asking for so much more money than the women are asking for, even at the start of the application process. And so I think even some of what you're saying is the internal things that are happening inside of some of our minds, whether it's an introverted, extroverted thing, or it's a minority group thing, or it's a gender thing, like, and it's probably all of it collectively. It's not like one thing that we can hang our hat on and say that's it. But there are some of these barriers that happen just inside of our head that say, no, that's not for me. And you even alluded to this, Rich, like personal finance looked like a well-dressed white man. And so just that, like the imagery that comes to mind already kind of predisposes us to maybe not negotiating or not thinking that I should keep a record of all the good things that I've done and present it to somebody. Like, I get a little sweaty thinking about that, honestly.
It sounds awkward and like weird, but for me, even keeping track of just even conversations that I have with people throughout the week. So anytime someone gives me positive feedback at work, I mean, not in passing. If I'm walking down the hall and someone's like, "Hey, Rich, nice shoes," I'm not gonna go write that down. Like, Tony said, I got nice shoes. But if I helped deliver on a project, if somebody was in a pinch and I helped them with something and they sent me a note afterwards and said, "Rich, really appreciated your help," I keep all of that because, I mean, not just so I can look at it and feel good about myself, though. I think that's important too. I'm not sure if y'all ever talked about like encouragement jars where you keep the positive feedback that you get so that when you're in a period where times do feel really down and difficult, you can kind of refer to that and to get you back into a good mental place.
But just keeping record of the good things. It made me nervous to think about that. But you're saying it's a good thing to do, not only for ourselves, for encouragement, but also how we can utilize that to present. And I'm assuming you're going in the direction of negotiating and increasing your salary.
Yeah. So one thing that I do have to work on, because you all mentioned how busy I am, is my sleep, because I haven't been getting the right amount of sleep for years. And now it's turning into like that short-term memory thing that just happened where I'll like lose something. So that is one of those like projects that I'm working on long term. But as
You're
far
not
as
alone, Rich. We've all been there.
I know I'll be in the kitchen at the refrigerator, like, why am I here?
Yeah.
But as far as the tracking, I keep that because when it comes performance review season, it's not just my manager. We also need to collect feedback from our peers. And so I want to have a list of all of the people that I had a positive interaction with, so that when I need to select peer reviewers, I can go through and say, okay, who are the people that I've helped out? What's the level of meaningfulness, impact? What level of seniority? I would love to have some feedback from folks who are more senior than myself, as opposed to just having feedback from folks who are at my level and below. And so little simple things, even if a director reaches out and asks me a question and they ask me if I can take care of something, even if it's just something I spend an hour on, I keep track of that, because at the point they're reaching out to me to work on it, I know that they're in a pinch. And it's just little things like that add up over time. And I don't know that we're also thoughtful about, not that I am, because I certainly was not for many years, but I don't know if we're all as thoughtful about keeping track of these little things that may seem insignificant, that when you add them together, I mean, it's just like investing or anything else. It compounds, you know?
Yeah. Absolutely. And what like a great exercise to incorporate into your work week, like Friday at 4 p.m. when nobody's doing anything
I don't know about 4 p.m., but go on.
to go back through the week and see like, okay, what did I accomplish? What's the best thing I accomplished this week? Who did I interact with? Like, what happened this week? And taking an inventory every week. So yeah, when that does come, you have things to pick and choose, because it is so easy to forget those things if you don't write them down. And then you don't have to feel like bossy or like boisterous. When you're in your performance review, you can simply be like, okay, let's let the data speak for itself. Let's let this list speak for itself. And it can kind of like solve some of those mental block barriers almost.
Definitely. And it's a confident booster too, when you look, because I've had so many weeks. I think we've all had weeks where we get to the end of it and we're like, I don't feel like I accomplished anything this week. I'm sure we've all had that feeling. But then when you actually look at all the things you crossed off your to-do list, maybe they weren't all these like grandiose, like planning a conference or a summit, they weren't all these grandiose things, but when you look, you're like, wow, I actually got like 40 or 50 transactional tasks done this week. Yes, I don't love doing those things, but that's something. And it even helps, like, say you want to be able to have a conversation with your manager about expectations, or even about how you're spending your time, being able to say like, hey, I'm spending 40 to 50% of my time on transactional tasks, replying to email. I'd love to start working on projects that have a bit more exposure and a bit more scope. And so by scope, I just mean like the realm of impact and probably the level that you need to work across different teams in that particular organization. And you don't know any of that stuff if you don't write it down. I really do think that like that's the most key and foundational thing to negotiating, because if you're not confident, how can you negotiate? Yeah. And so if you have all these receipts and you're getting ready to go into a performance review conversation, and by the way, I think you should be having this type of conversation with a manager every month to make sure that you're on the same page, so you don't end up in performance review season with surprises. But you should be happily in those conversations, like sharing. And when they say, hey, like, what's been going on? You're like, oh, just plugging along. Like, no, say, hey, things have been going well. I got some great feedback from this, that. Because your manager may even start to ask you more questions. And then next thing you know, they might say something like, oh, I didn't know you were so passionate about that. Or, wow, I didn't know that was a skill of yours. Do you want to work on this thing? So it's just important that you don't just wait for that one time of the year to have the conversation, that you're having that conversation throughout the year on a regular basis, whether it's weekly. I mean, you don't have to go, look at what I did, every single day, but there should be a regular cadence where you're having career conversations with your manager. And if your manager is not scheduling that with you, it is your responsibility to find that time and own your career and drive that conversation with them.
Absolutely. Such good advice.
AI might be the most important new computer technology ever. It's storming every industry, and literally billions of dollars are being invested. So, buckle up. The problem is that AI needs a lot of speed and processing power. So, how do you compete without costs spiraling out of control? It's time to upgrade to the next generation of the cloud, Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, or OCI. OCI is a single platform for your infrastructure, database, application development, and AI needs. OCI has 4 to 8 times the bandwidth of other clouds, offers one consistent price instead of variable regional pricing. And of course, nobody does data better than Oracle. So now you can train your AI models at twice the speed and less than half the cost of other clouds. If you want to do more and spend less, like Uber, 8x8, and Databricks Mosaic, take a free test drive of OCI at oracle.com/strategic. That's oracle.com/strategic. oracle.com/strategic.
We know New Year's resolutions often don't stick. In fact, on average, they last around 30 days. So if saving money is on your 2024 resolution list, here's a foolproof way to stick to yours.
Switch your phone provider to Mint Mobile. For a limited time, wireless plans from Mint Mobile are $15 a month when you purchase a 3-month plan. That's unlimited talk, text, and data for $15 a month.
For those of you paying close to $40 a month for just one phone line, this means a savings of $300 over the course of the year. We especially like Mint because all plans come with unlimited talk and text and high-speed data delivered on the nation's largest 5G network.
To get this new customer offer and your new 3-month unlimited wireless plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/frugal. That's mintmobile.com/frugal. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/frugal. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details.
So we know now, writing down performance stuff, writing down what you've done, like writing down what you do so that you can like broaden your scope. Is there any other specific tips for someone who's looking right now to make more money at their current job?
Yep. And this is difficult because there's small companies, medium companies, large companies, publicly traded companies, private companies, and they're subject to all sorts of regulation. And then another thing, I know it's not law in every state yet, but there are some states where employers, if you're interviewing for a role, they legally cannot ask you your salary. And as things like that continue to change, hopefully we get to a place where it's the same type of laws across the board. But that factor, even within negotiating for external, and I'll get to the internal piece, but even external, one thing I tell people is do not divulge your salary unless it's somehow required, because apparently there are some fields where you have to provide that information, or if you work for the government, it's public information. But if you can avoid divulging that up front, let them speak first and come back at the end, fantastic. I think for internal, it's a bit more challenging because, for example, where I work, you can't just in the middle of a performance cycle say, hey, I want a raise, and just send a note to HR and ask for a raise. The main opportunities are during that performance review conversation. And then also if you get a promotion, and then depending on the size of the company that you work at, maybe you can make some type of lateral move. And so that's what I've done for my last couple of jobs, where I maintained my level and I went from being a staffing lead to a internal communications and change management program manager. And then from that, I lateraled again to move into the DEI world. And that doesn't necessarily correlate to a pay increase every time, but from a job satisfaction, mental real estate, mental wealth perspective, I think that there's a lot to that, because I find even if I'm working more hours, that if I enjoy the work and it's something that I'm passionate and excited about, it doesn't drain away from my energy to still work on things outside of the office that are important to me. So the money part is super important. I do think when you're internal, it's more challenging. The other best way to get an increase is to get an external offer and then come back and say, hey, I have this external offer. But that is a risky move, because if you just go at some places, if you just go and start interviewing, they assume that you're no longer loyal and that you want to leave. And so you have to be comfortable accepting that risk. But I have seen people where if they are top performers, they go, especially after they've worked somewhere for a few years, because I think after about 2 years somewhere, if you don't like move or make a change, your the rate at which your pay is going up actually starts to decrease. Damn it, I just lost it again. Can y'all edit this? Can y'all do a jump cut on this?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a Forbes study. Whereas people who don't make some kind of move after 2 years can limit their salary potential by up to 50% over their lifetime.
Yeah. And that's a huge number. The other one was that the difference between negotiating an additional $5,000 at the beginning of your career over the course of your career works out to over $500,000 that you've left on the table by not negotiating that first 5,000. But when you're internal, there it is. And you get that external offer and you're a high performer, the company may say, crap, like we need to come up on this to be able to keep this person, or maybe it triggers them to look at all the pay equity internally. Because what typically happens, you stay in the same role for a few years. This has happened to me. You stay in the same role for a few years. You get little raises here and there, and it feels good. But then when you check the market and you start interviewing, and then you realize people are making 20, 25, 30% more than you, that's when it's like, oh, crap. So I have seen it work where you go out and interview elsewhere to get a sense of your market value, but you also need to be comfortable knowing that if you come back with the offer, that the company may just say, well, okay, see you later.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's amazing that sometimes companies will choose to lose their employees over that, because I've also seen it happen so many times where an employee does walk away, goes somewhere else, and then the original company tries to get them back for, what would have represented like a 30% increase sometimes. And that happened to Travis.
Yeah, my husband, he left because of salary, and 2 years later, they brought him back for more than he was making at the new job. It was, yeah.
That's how it works. I mean, there are some people who believe that you should move around every 2 years. I don't personally subscribe to that philosophy. I understand it, and I get the data behind it. But my thing is, like, I want this to be the last place I work for as long as I work in corporate America. You know, I don't have a desire to try to go to a Facebook, a Twitter to get more money. Like, I'm good. I'm happy with where I am. I'm happy with the equity. I'm happy with a lot of the freedom that the role provides. And I just mentioned that because the money is one part of it, but sometimes there are these other benefits where whether it's like the cost of healthcare, vacation time, Google's like fertility, I don't even know how you pronounce that. In vitro?
IVF, yeah. In vitro fertilization.
There we go. My bad. I'm such a that is so man of me. Even stuff like that, where if you're thinking about family planning, there are all of these other benefits that we don't think about because we often get so fixed on the salary, which is important. But let's say that I'm going to go somewhere and the offer is, $60K, and I get, 4 weeks of vacation, free breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and I get a monthly Metro card. Okay, so it's like, okay, $60,000 plus all these other benefits. This other job pays $80K, but I don't get any of that. Now, I can't do all of the math on that quickly in my head, but hopefully the way that it works out from how I described it is that job that paid less as far as salary, when you factor in how much money is saved in terms of benefits, or maybe they have a childcare offering, that quickly makes up that $80K that other salary had. So it's important that people think about the money part of it, but it's also important that people think about what are the other benefits or the other things that are important to me. So going back to that values part, and even just kind of like core needs, like what are the things that I absolutely need in my next role based off of where I want to go in my life or where I want my family to be, and let me decide from that perspective as opposed to just deciding based on the dollar amount alone. Because if you decide based on the dollar amount alone, I don't have data to support it, but there is a pretty good chance you will ultimately end up unhappy and unfulfilled.
I'm really glad you mentioned the benefits piece. I think it often gets pushed aside when we consider negotiation. And this is something, so just as an example, my mom works as a certified medical assistant at a hospital, and they're pretty rigid with how they approach salaries and the caps and when you get a raise and how often and what percentage it's going to be. And I'm not saying you can't negotiate. To me, I think, try. What's the worst they're going to do? Say no. But I'm like, like, okay, when that's the case when it comes to finances, but you know you still want to stay in it, consider asking for other things. To her, flexibility is really important. So ask for more vacation time, ask for better health benefits, ask for an increase in your 401k match. Like who knows? But there's different ways that we can explore negotiation, not just salary. So I really appreciate your focus on that.
Yeah. Even like you're going to take a course and maybe that course relates to your job. See if your job will reimburse you for it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, are there things that you're already doing? And a lot of times these companies have these discount portals that people don't look into where, you know, you can get things like discounts on your cell phone, discounts on products and services from other companies, like discounts on MacBooks. So there are all of these things that are even discount on travel. There are all of these things that are available. They're even sometimes they're buried in some 500-page employee handbook, or the company isn't as good as socializing all of the various resources that are available. And that's why, you know, I emphasize so much that this career progression thing really is on the individual. It really is on you to stay on track of all of these things and not assume that other people don't know how to do their job, but just take your career take your life in your own, just live intentionally. I feel like when you live intentionally, things just work out. Not all of the time. You're going to have these peaks and valleys and dips, but when you're moving intentionally with a goal in mind, whether short term or long term, I just find that even with all of the turbulence that happens in life, it still feels easier to get there because ultimately you know what it is that you're working toward. And I think the same thing applies to your career.
Yeah. Speaking of that intentionality piece, and if somebody is considering their career and considering what they're getting paid and their benefits, do you have any guide or template on when is a good time to be considering a higher pay, or when to kind of start that process, whether it's within your company or if it is necessary to make a career move?
It's funny that I'm going to answer this way because I just decided this literally yesterday. I think the time to start thinking about that is pretty much after you accept that offer for whatever role you're in now, or whenever you start your next role, starting to have an idea of how that's going to take you forward, which is going to help you plot the next few steps. So I'll give you an example of this. When I was working at a nonprofit from 2010 to 2013, that was my first role as an HR generalist. And the reason that I was able to get into that role is because I had did a bid. I'm gonna call it a bid, like it was prison, at a staffing agency. And the reason that I did that was because I found out to get into HR generalist role, I needed to pick up kind of more of the core HR skills, or pick up what was a professional in human resources certification. Working at this staffing agency allowed me to get the experience and pick up credits so that I could sit for the professional and human resources exam. The fact that I had picked up those credits and I was positioning myself for this exam made this company interested in me because they saw that I was serious about HR. So taking that headhunter job, I started my career in sales, but then taking that headhunter job, even that was connected to what I did in sales, because you're on the phone, you're pitching people, you're selling opportunities, and you're selling candidates to companies, you're selling products. And so each role that I've taken has been intentional in terms of how it set me up for the next one. So when I went from that nonprofit, that I won't talk about how I felt when I left it, but when I left that nonprofit, I said, I want to go to a tech startup that'll better position me to get noticed by a larger company like a Google or someone like that. And that's what ended up happening. And I mention that because that career decision of I want to go to this type of company to better position me for the next thing, because it's not always that immediate next move, right? Sometimes it's 2 or 3 moves down the road. And so knowing that you may have to take a pivot or what might feel like a little bit of a step back to ultimately come up in the long term, it's well worth it. So I encourage people just constantly thinking about like what's next, how you can pick up new skills. If there is a direction that you want to go, what are the skills that you need to pick up now, or the type of projects and type of work that you need to get on so that you can pick up more of that experience, so that when it comes time to interview or when it comes time to have that conversation about a promotion or your readiness, you've already picked up the skills. And again, it's, hey, look, I've got the receipts. I think even for interviewing, that same list of stuff that I write down, and I do all of this in Trello, when it comes time for me to interview for jobs, same thing. I go through all of the projects that I've worked on, everything that I've accomplished, all of the people that I've talked to, just to jog stories. Like, what are the realm of stories, or what are the realms of things that I can say in these conversations to showcase my value, my knowledge, and that I'm the person that you need to hire and get all these other candidates out the paint.
So wise.
I love all the tips that you're providing, from keeping track of it. And I think there's a bit of a perspective shift with this too, because a lot of times we'll keep track of all the negative stuff within our workplaces, of all the stuff someone else did that really frustrated us.
Yes.
But still keep a list. Just make it a list about all the things that you are doing well and that position you well to increasing that salary, increasing that benefits, and living more intentionally. I think it's excellent. And to constantly be thinking about it, even from day one. All right, when am I going to negotiate for that higher pay? What do I want it to be? What are the skill sets, environments, experiences that I want to be a part of, in order so that, I love the term you're using, the receipts. So I have the proof of it to say, here's why. It's not just, oh, can you give me an extra $10,000? But here's why I think that I've earned that value for this company. Excellent.
Yeah. It's and I'm saying because I agree with what you're saying, not because I think what I said is so dope.
I'm just repeating what you're saying, so that's fine.
Yeah.
Add it to your list of all the dope things you're doing.
Yeah. And I really do feel like the actual negotiation part, and that's why I'm not talking so much about the negotiation as everything that comes before it, because really, to me, most of it is the mental, most of it is this receipts part of it. Because if you go into the conversation and you're confident, you're less likely to back down when you just got all of this evidence and you feel that you have this solid case, and you're looking and you're like, yo, look at all of this stuff that I've done. And that's information that you can use internally with the current company or externally. And maybe you look at all these things that you've done, you have a conversation internally, you ask about a raise, they say no, and then you take those same receipts and those turn into resume bullet points. Those turn into stories that you're telling in external interviews, which then turn into offers that you're now bringing back to your company and saying, here's what happens when you don't pay someone their worth. I'll see you later. So
I feel energized.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Oh, I hope that the people listening to this will be motivated to now go. And I hate this term, ask for what you're worth, because we have this mental block about what our self-worth is, but to just ask for more and to justify it with those receipts, to start keeping them so that maybe your self-worth does increase as a result of doing this. So I think it can be twofold. I think we're going to raise people's feeling of self-worth and their incomes.
Yeah.
So I'm very excited.
And I have this negotiation thing, I can summarize it particularly for external when you're moving jobs. And I kind of talked about it already. The magic to a recruiter's ears, or whoever you're working with on the job at the point that you do have an offer, is and this is after they've told you the numbers and you have not told them what the numbers are, and they come back with the offer that's probably going to be a pretty low, or it could be really high, which would be awesome. In which case, still ask for more. But if you say, okay, I've looked at the offer, I'd be willing to sign this today if give whatever it is that you want, and that recruiter or that person, they're incentivized to get you hired, whether in-house, outhouse, in-house or external.
Outhouse, yes.
Not in the outhouse.
Whatever house you in.
Yeah. Hopefully with no flies in it. But that just, I could tell you from doing this for years, that I'm ready to sign today if that gives the recruiter the information that they need to go back to the compensation team, the HR team, whoever's controlling the budget. And since they have extended the offer to you, it's clear that they want you. That is how you get them to do whatever they can do on their side. And typically, whatever they come back with after that point is close to, if not the actual number that they can really do. Mm-hmm. So if they offer you $70K and you say, hey, I've looked at everything and I'd be willing to sign this offer today if we could get to 85, and they come back and say the highest we can do is 70, then maybe you say, Is there any flexibility on benefits, vacation time? I have some trips. And like that's kind of how it goes, as opposed to you saying, oh, well, I make 65 today. And so they anchor on, 65 or 70. You don't tell them that. You let them throw out the first number. And then your goal is just to push that up. And remember, it doesn't have to be just in the dollar amount. It could be in the other benefits that you ask about as well. Because let's say they say 75 instead of 85. You go, okay. And then you ask about benefits. As a recruiter, it's like, what other things can I do to close this person? So, okay, we got money off the table. They seem to be cool with that. Like, what are the other things that I can do to try and sweeten the pot for this person to get them in the door? I think a lot of people negotiate from the perspective of, oh my God, I don't want to mess this up. Oh my God, I don't want to lose this opportunity. If I ask for more, they're going to walk away. And I think I've heard of that happening in like 0.1% of cases. And if a place does walk away from you for asking for more, then that's probably not a place you wanted to be in the first place. But just that, and I find it works in general, that if we can get to, I'd be ready to today, is gold.
Yeah, I find, and I didn't know this until I became an entrepreneur, but in businesses that are hiring, businesses don't typically hire proactively, they hire reactively. And so when they need somebody and they've chosen someone, they are really kind of desperate to like get that position filled quickly. So it is definitely, they don't hire just because they have the time to and money lying around to hire people. They need people.
One more thing, and this is where I see people fumble with negotiation, is the market, the economy, how the company is doing has no impact on what your worth is and the value that they should be paying you. When I hear people say, oh, like, I know it's tough times, so I'm looking to take a little, why? Why are you looking to take less? Your value hasn't changed. Your skill set hasn't changed.
This isn't where the altruism needs to come out.
It's so funny that people will think so much about the companies, but these companies don't think so much about the people. They'll be quick to lay you off, fire you, and you're thinking, oh, like, I really need this. Like, you know what? Maybe I'll just take no, your rate is your rate. Whatever work they need done, clearly you know how to do it. So you got to hold to that. I don't care how the market is going up or down. I know some people who are making more money than they've ever made before because the skill set is in a deficit, or just like you all said, it's reactive, and a hiring manager is incentivized to get someone in the door as quickly as possible because they're probably doing 2 or 3x work. Someone on their team is probably doing 2 or 3x work, and now that's creating an attrition risk. So just remember that when you do get to that stage, you really are in the driver's seat.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. So this is a question that we're asking all of our speakers based on the topic that we're talking about. But we'd really love to know, like, what do you hope the future of careers holds or includes?
Remote flexibility, huge. That's one thing I think that's come out of the pandemics at the Googs. And I am not a company spokesperson, but I know we're working back toward 3 days in office, 2 days out. There's also an option where you can apply to be 100% remote regardless of where you live, which I hadn't thought about as much, that I'm starting to look at a lot more seriously, because for some people, being remote and working from home isn't the greatest situation. Family, kids, maybe it's even like an abusive situation, like who knows? But the flexibility to, I've enjoyed this experience of working from home. You know, I've gotten so much more stuff done at home than I could get done in the office because of the way that my focus is set up. And I know a lot of other people who are experiencing their utmost levels of productivity. And I've also found that there's a general feeling of empowerment where people have had a year to kind of sit around and think, like, what do I want out of life? Like, maybe I should pick up a hobby, habit. So people are setting up Etsy stores and all of this other stuff. And these are things that would be a lot more difficult to do if it were not for us working from home. So I think there's some work to be done in terms of how this pans out legally and like benefit wise from a certain perspective, because there are things like if you work in one state, but you're living somewhere else, how that impacts you. But that flexibility for people to work from wherever they want, and for companies to understand you can still get the job done. It's not just a product of being in the office. that's where I hope we go. Like RTO or return to the office and remote flex, like it is a huge topic right now that I'm seeing with people who are leaving the company and just with folks who are perusing the career streets in general.
Yeah.
Wow.
It is neat to see some of the benefits that have come out of this past 1.5+ years and just really the post-traumatic growth that can happen, the resilience that
I love
it
that.
builds.
I'm writing that down.
Jill has so many one-liners. Like, it's so good.
I'm a social worker for my day job, so.
Oh, yeah.
She can convey really big topics and big ideas in like 3 to 4 words. And it's great.
Thanks, Jen. You know,
if I can get you to do
simplifying
that
things.
if I can get you to do that for crypto, that'd be fantastic. We'll talk about that later. Thanks.
We'll work on it.
Yes.
That's right. It's time for the best minute of your entire week. Maybe a baby was born and his name is William. Maybe you paid off your mortgage. Maybe your car died and you're happy to not have to pay that bill anymore. Duck bills, Buffalo Bills, Bill Clinton. This is the bill of the week.
Oh, well, with that, Rich, can you share your bill of the week with us?
My bill of the week. And it's funny, I am looking around my room, buying myself time, thinking of something that's going to remind me of a bill. Actually, and this will not be a surprise at all, my therapist bill. Actually, I just saw that. So it's like $185 every time I go. I go weekly. I've been going weekly since, with the exception of some holidays, since August 2017. And I mentioned that, and I do get expensed, or I do get reimbursed for part of it through my healthcare benefits. So yay, see, benefit. But I mentioned that because I've been thinking a lot about just where life is currently. And I was talking to Jen about this, and just a lot of the abundance and things that have come my way, and having a therapist and having a support system and having what I like to call the right investments in my life portfolio has made a huge difference. And I don't think that I'm even here having this conversation with y'all today, and possibly not even here, period. I know that sounds super grim if I don't start working with a therapist and start putting the right folks around me and really taking care of myself. So I'm going to go with the therapist bill, because that's a bill that I don't mind paying every week.
Oh, that thrills me to hear. And I champion everything that you've just said. And thanks for the plug too. Just for my mental health field that I'm in, I really appreciate it. I think again, if we were to think about post-traumatic growth, I do think that a lot of the stigma along with seeking help and support as it relates to mental health is decreasing. The people are seeking out help and support more. There's also a double-edged sword with that, because there is such a need for it. But there is help available and support available. So well done. Glad that is your bill, and that you're not, ashamed to talk about it or do it on a regular basis. And I'm really thrilled to hear it's helping you.
Yeah. I mean, just owning your story, owning your, it's just talking about this type of stuff. It's really big to me right now, especially with men, because I know there's ego and there's, the norms, and, we just pray it out. There's all sorts of stuff. And it didn't take, but when I lost a friend he took his own life in 2018. And this was somebody who, one of those extremely popular but secretly struggling folks, just had everything. You thought he was going to be he just had everything, but no one knew, or people didn't know till afterwards, and then they started piecing it together. But that's why, I just harp on, it is so important. Don't be ashamed to go have a conversation, go talk to someone. There's actually less judgment when you talk to a therapist, because they're not your family, they're not your friends. there's really no judgment. You're paying to not be judged.
Yeah.
Which
They better not be.
Which is great.
They're
Yeah.
out of a job
Few
if that's
places
what
you
they're
can
doing.
get that now.
Yeah, exactly. So
We all agree that reducing carbon emissions is a good thing. And once again, Toyota is leading the way. We hear a lot about fully electric vehicles, and Toyota has them, with more on the way. But we also know ABEV is not for everyone, whether it's because of cost, range, or concern about finding a charging station when you need it. Plus, the raw materials used to manufacture batteries are limited. Enter Beyond Zero, Toyota's vision for a carbon-neutral future. In vehicles and in manufacturing plants, too, in the years ahead. The materials used to make just one long-range battery for an EV could be used to make batteries for 6 plug-in hybrids or 90 gas-electric hybrids. That's why Toyota's position today is electrified, diversified, empowering you to choose how to reduce your own carbon footprint with the vehicle that's right for you. A hybrid, plug-in hybrid, or battery EV. So, shop. Learn more and get details at toyota.com/beyond zero. Toyota, let's go places.
It's never too late. Never too late to earn a degree. Never too late for a comeback. Between your busy career and taking care of a family, it can feel like there's never a good time to go back to school. But your time is now. Time to start your comeback with Purdue Global. As Purdue's online university for working adults, Purdue Global is dedicated to supporting adults like you who know it's time to earn the recognition you deserve. You have the experience, you have the knowledge, it's time to get credit for the work you've done. You can balance work, family, and everything in between while earning your degree. It's time to move forward in your career, for your family and for yourself, with a degree you're proud of, a degree that employers will recognize and respect. You're worth this investment in yourself to earn a degree you deserve. It's never too late. Never too late to go back to school and come back stronger with an education you can trust. Now is the time for your comeback. Start yours today at purdueglobal.edu.
And we're glad that you're here, Rich, that you have helped so many people and your story is helping people and going to help even more people in the future. So thank you for being here. Where can people hear more from you?
yes, so you can check out the Paychecks and Balances podcast on your favorite podcast player, also at paychecksandbalances.com. You can also follow me on all the socials at PayBalances. If you follow that account, you get a link to my personal. I post a lot more regularly on at PayBalances, personal finance content, career content, motivational content, mental health content, and some fun along the way. And that's pretty much it. At PayBalances, paychecksandbalances.com. Podcast is now weekly, being released on Thursday. So I encourage you to come over, check that out, and say what's up in these social media streets.
Yes.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Rich, thanks for sharing your perspective. Thanks for
Yes.
being in this space. Thank you for offering another face to personal finance other than a white male.
Yeah, no problem. I tip my hat.
Yes. Do you see what we mean? Do you see what we mean now? Receipts have a whole new meaning.
It was really rude of us to hold this episode, or this interview, like hold it away from you for so long. But we've seen our error, and that's why we're bringing it to you.
Now
It's not
you have
actually
it.
that we've seen our error. It's that we just need to pack a lot of interviews in a short amount of time.
Yeah.
So you get the benefit of my maternity leave.
We're all reaping those benefits.
Yes.
That baby gonna be so cute.
But I hope that you will take something away from this interview, like really advocating yourself, taking risks, and hopefully increasing your income if you're not able to do a side hustle to really capitalize on the 40 hours a week you put in at work.
Thank you all so much for listening. And again, we're going to remind you that we have a membership for our listeners. People are already in there working towards their debt payoffs. And we do monthly money challenges. There's accountability groups in there so you can chat with others about what your financial goals are, share tips with each other. We want to congratulate one of our members for a big win. This comes from Vanessa W., who shared, "My husband and I saved over $4,500 in January doing a no spend challenge. As a result, we have been able to start putting in offers on homes."
Wow.
Woo!
That's what we did when we were told that we had 6 weeks to get out of our apartment because the owner was going to Airbnb it. And we just did a no spend month. And that's how we were able to get like additionals to our savings for the house.
Wow.
So well done, Vanessa.
This is amazing that you could find that amount of money in 1 month to set aside for putting in offers on homes that might otherwise have been spent.
Mm-hmm.
These are what no spend challenges are for,
Mm-hmm.
like specific reason, identify maybe habits you want to shift and change, not a long-term lifestyle, but can really help jumpstart these goals. Well done, Vanessa.
Or finish them strong. Like I have just a couple thousand left on this credit card. I need just a couple thousand for a down payment. Doing a no spend challenge to just really quickly like get there. So motivating.
Thank you all again for being here. If you want to check out that membership where we have those courses, interviews, challenges, lots more really awesome people over there, go to frugalfriendspodcast.com/club. See if it's a good fit for you.
Bye. Frugal Friends is produced by Eric Siriani.
Okay, Jen, speaking of intentional strategies to increase your income
Oh,
and
goodness.
just wealth in general, can you already tell I'm being sarcastic
Yep.
with what's to come next?
I can't wait.
So friends were in town this past weekend and we went to the beach, and lo and behold, we find this one little beach toy peeking up out of the sand. No children are around. So we know this was just left behind and nearly covered. What it was a beautiful little turtle, flexible sand mold. However, I'm thinking, this could also be an ice mold. Because it was mostly
Silicone?
kind of silicone.
Yeah.
Yeah, super flexible.
Mhm.
So we bring it home and I decide to get cracking on turtle making.
Turtle ice.
What is one turtle mold could be infinite ice turtles.
Infinite ice turtles.
And so
infinite's not the word I
I
use.
get going. I washed it out first and made sure it was very free of sand. And I even began to set timers, also out of my curiosity to see how long to make one turtle. How long does it take?
Does it take to make an ice turtle?
It does take more than an hour. I set it for 1 hour, went back to it. It wasn't quite long enough, but 2 hours, solid amount of
Oh, wow. I
time
would've
for a
thought
turtle
4.
ice. So I was on it. I got to the fourth one. So I have a bag that I was putting these ice turtles into and pulling them out every time, adding to it. I had 3 done. I was about to get the 4th out. The 4th broke. Oh no, what could be done? But how about let's try just adding more water to it, refreezing it. It'll congeal it all again into ice. Did that, put the turtle back in. You know what I didn't do? I didn't put the bag of the other 3 turtles back into the freezer. All those turtles melted. My now nearly 24 hours of turtle making, all for naught. It was just water at that point. Did I let it get me down though? For a minute, yes. But
yes.
I persevered. And we are back on the turtle making game. I don't know what I'm going to do with it because I see it in myself. There is a part of me of what other kinds of molds could I be getting for myself? I don't want that. I don't want ice molds. I don't want my fridge to only be full of ice, although I do love those Instagram accounts. It's fun to watch, but I can't do that. I'm only doing this because I got a free turtle from the beach. Although my friend who knows that I'm in a bit of transition with my work was like, this could be your next gig.
You could sell
turtle
ice
making. And I prefer to keep it as a hobby, but maybe in like 5 years from now, I discover
it'll be. Yeah.
Well, so far, I'm not the greatest at it.
You need to practice. And you're never going to be perfect right off the first turtle or the fifth,
I'm going to try and figure out if there's a way I can weave it in at your baby shower. Turtles are not the theme. Donuts are the theme. Spoiler alert. But there might be like a turtle in your drink. Wow. Ice turtle.
Did you test it to make sure the ice turtles fit in your cups?
Nope.
Okay.
With the best all-inclusive vacation deals to Mexico and the Caribbean, booking your getaway with Cheap Caribbean Vacations means you have more freedom to do your deal. Whether you want to enjoy snorkeling, endless margaritas, and more, or simply soak up the sun and sand in a tropical paradise, Cheap Caribbean Vacations has your deal for that. Plan and book the exact getaway you want at exactly the right price for you by using our exclusive Budget Beach Finder, or find a featured all-inclusive package to Paradisus by Malia Hotels, and do your deal at cheapcaribbean.com.
Bring home Napoleon.
Destiny has brought me here.
The action epic from acclaimed director Ridley Scott.
What is your name?
Napoleon. You are the greatest leader in the history of the world.
Witness the rise.
You are nothing without me.
Of the legend. Starring Academy Award winner Joaquin Phoenix and Vanessa Kirby.
I'm the first to admit when I make a mistake. I simply never do.
Napoleon. Buy or rent on digital now. Rated R.